Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 55 of Big Brother season 23. And welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. Okay, first of all, a recap. We did have the veto ceremony yesterday. As you may recall, we had Xavier and Kyland, SarahBeth on the block. Hannah controlled the veto. And to no one's surprise, Hannah did use a veto and she used it on Xavier to pull Xavier off the block. Yeah, we knew it was going to happen. Kylan had been trying to convince people to pull him off instead so he could give a sympathy vote to SarahBeth. It wasn't going to happen. There wasn't any chance of that. And as it turns out, Xavier's off the block, which means that either Kylan or SarahBeth will be heading home Thursday. SarahBeth. SarahBeth's going home. 100% SarahBeth is going home. Now, Kylan is doing a pretty good job of certainly making certain that he's one of the first Cookout Alliance members to go home. He doesn't have a whole lot of fans right now. He's kind of been, is nagging the right word? I'm going to use that word. He's been talking a lot about the idea that he wanted to try to get himself pulled off, and then thinking maybe he could then convince people to vote out Alyssa instead of SarahBeth. He had a lot of plans. He's been trying to protect her, but he's kind of alienated the rest of the group because he's been trying so hard. Well, that's over. At this point, it's now either him or SarahBeth. So I imagine he'll step back. I don't know that either one of these is going to campaign that hard against each other. The reality is, I think everyone, including the two nominees, know that SarahBeth is heading out of the house. Unless something just, no. There's nothing that's going to happen between now and then. SarahBeth's heading home or heading to the jury house on Thursday. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about the overnight feeds. When I first turned on the feeds after I get home from work and I see the house guests getting pedicures, I just know it's going to be one of those kind of nights. And it turned out it was. Xavier was getting a pedicure from Tiffany out in the backyard, little patio area. Who else? Hannah was getting a pedicure from Claire in the bathroom. So a lot of pedicures taking place to start the evening off. Now, it is interesting. While Claire is doing Hannah's pedicure in the bathroom, they did talk a little bit of strategy. Hannah was basically saying, look, I'm a little bit worried about Xavier, but and she mentions the fact that Xavier knew he was safe this week, and so she just didn't feel like he was playing as hard and all of that. And she's saying if he's on the block, then he's going to play a lot harder. And the end result is Hannah's saying that if she was HOH, she would put up Kyland and Alyssa as her targets, and if either one of them came off, she would potentially then replace them with Big D or Xavier as a replacement, and potentially send Xavier home if she had the opportunity to do so. I don't think this conversation really matters that much because I really think this is all being said just for Claire's benefit. I don't think that's Hannah's plan, but it's thrown out there. It's just a little bit more misleading information to keep Claire a little bit more comfortable for another week or two. So I think it's for Claire's benefit. Claire does talk during this conversation about how it's going to be so cool and how happy she's going to be to have 4 women in the final 4 this year. I just don't think it's going to happen, Claire. I know that would be your end goal, but other objectives in mind this season. So yeah, Claire's thinking the final 4 of herself, Hannah, Tiffany, and Azah. I'm sure that's the other 3 she's considering, but not this season, Claire. Some other season we may have the final 4 of all women, but not this season. All right, we also have some other conversations. Xavier's talking to SarahBeth in the backyard, back in the patio area. He's saying, "Oh, SarahBeth, at least you made jury." That's not the way you ever want to have someone start a conversation with you, right? Yeah, that's not the most positive side. Yeah, she made jury, but pretty indicative of where Xavier think it's heading from there. But he says, yeah, at least you made jury. SarahBeth is saying that she'd love to come back for another season just so she could erase this season and kind of have a do-over. Yeah, a lot of people think that. She's also saying that she doesn't think that this season will have a bitter jury. I'm really curious about that. I don't know one way or the other. Could you have bitter jurors in that house, especially once they find out that this big alliance existed for so long? I don't know. I really don't know. I think I think bitter jury may come into play more once we see who turns on who within the Cookout Alliance and whether it's expected or not. I could see a little bit of a bitter jury just because of that. But I don't know. We haven't played the game quite deep enough to know if we're going to have a bitter jury or not. But that would be interesting to see if we could have that. But here's the thing. There's so much talk between Xavier and SarahBeth right now about the jury votes, about returning for another season, about how well they played up to this point, things like that. All of that conversation is really making me think that SarahBeth is starting to process and recognize that it's her time to go to the jury house, that she's not going to last beyond this week. Remember, up until a day or two ago, she was still thinking, based on what Tiffany had told her, that maybe Kyland really was the primary target and that maybe she wouldn't be going home this week. I think that's changed. I think there's some conversations maybe that took place, or just some realization. You can tell the way people look at you, the way they talk to you. You know, in that house when people are looking at you a little different. And I think that's happened with SarahBeth. I think she understands by now that she's going home this week. All right, there was a lot of downtime yesterday. 3 hours or so, at least, of downtime. Well, we don't know why. There really wasn't any explanation. There's no competitions going on. There wasn't really anything said when the feeds came back. So not sure what happened, but the feed's down quite a bit. So we have some gaps where I'm not really sure what conversations took place. But once they came back, what was it, 10 o'clock Big Brother time, something like somewhere around there. Finally, they came back. We had a few other conversations. We've got SarahBeth talking about how she's been trying to collect souvenirs from the house. Again, more talk that suggests that she's prepared to go home, or preparing. But she's talked about collecting souvenirs from all over the house, but she's worried because when she gets home, they'll just sit in a big box. Well, she may not have to worry, because here's a little inside scoop for you guys. When you leave the house, when you're evicted, I assume if you win the whole thing, even when you leave the house, your luggage is inspected by Big Brother producers, and almost anything that you didn't come in with is taken. I had all my costumes I wanted to take out with me. I had shoes from the competition. A few of the shoes were left in my luggage, but all the costumes were taken behind. I also had tried to take there was a big sheet of paper that listed the slop ingredients, all the slop nutritional values. I thought, well, that'd be pretty cool to have. I took that with me. Nah, it got yanked out of my luggage. Now, at the end, you get a big memorabilia box from the producers that has a lot of your costumes and a few little tokens, your key and things like that are cool. But they decide what you get to take out of that house and what you don't get to keep. And so, yeah, SarahBeth's doing a lot of collecting, but it's probably not going to matter at the end of the day. So just a little inside scoop there. We do have Hannah talking to Kyland. She is saying that she wants Claire gone next if this is double eviction. And I think her explanation or her reasoning is that if there's a double eviction this week, then that probably means that there's also going to be a battle back. And I'm guessing that she likes Derek X's chances to win a battle back and come back into the house if he's having to compete against Claire more so than against Alyssa. Just thinking on my part, trying to figure out why she's suggesting Claire if it's a double eviction, if it's a battle back. It doesn't matter, because we're not going to have a double this week. I really don't think we'll have a battle back either. But at least in talking to Kyland, Hannah is suggesting that she would like to see Claire gone before Alyssa, which is kind of interesting, because I really figured that all the guys would all be pushing for Claire to go to the jury house first, and that all the women would be pushing to send Alyssa to the jury first, and that you'd have this gender split between the two. But I'm thinking that Hannah may be pushing to go ahead and get Claire out for maybe two reasons. One, it allows Hannah to get a little more attention from Tiffany by herself, as opposed to having to share that attention with Claire. And secondly, it just seems like Hannah has been aligning a little bit closer with the guys here just recently. She pulled Xavier off the block with the veto. She just seems like in a lot of ways she feels a lot more comfortable with the guys sometimes. So maybe those are the reasons why she's pushing to go ahead and send Claire out the door. Not good news for Tiffany. If you have a situation like that, you may have a little more numbers on the men's side, which is not good for Tiffany's game. We'll see how that comes into play over the next couple of weeks. All right, there's a talk amongst Tiffany and SarahBeth and Claire about dating and would you date guys taller, and just a bunch of dating conversations. And then it turns to astrology as well. Well, it turns out that apparently Tiffany is a Taurus, just like myself. Yay! Excuse me. Both Tauruses. Now, I'm not really into astrology and all that. Imagine that. Who would have thought that, right? Yeah, I'm not really into astrology, but I do remember during our season a conversation out in the backyard in the swimming pool where I was told by Christy Murphy during my season that she was really surprised that I was in the house because as a Taurus, she just didn't think Tauruses really would do well in Big Brother because I guess we're not supposed to be real adaptable. We're real stubborn. We like consistency and all that. And she just didn't think that I'd be a very good player in Big Brother just because I was a Taurus. Now, again, I'm not huge into Big Brother, but I had a little panic scare when that conversation went on. Thank God, don't send me out of this house. Don't let my Big Brother journey end just because you think I'm the wrong astrological sign. The tiniest thing can get someone booted out of the house if you have someone that jumps on board with it. So it just made me think, as they're talking about astrology signs and all of that, remembering my own recollections from season 21. We've got Hannah and SarahBeth singing their On the Block song, and eventually Tiffany says, guys, y'all are getting on my nerves. And props to Tiffany. This idea that people just make up their songs and can sing them throughout the house all day long. There's a reason that no one in the Big Brother house, to my knowledge, are professional songwriters. And I know during my season as well, I got so tired of hearing these made up songs sung over and over and over again. So I'm feeling you, Tiffany. I'm absolutely feeling you. But with that being said, later Tiffany joins in on another song. So maybe she just didn't like the particular made up song they were singing as opposed to another one. I don't know, but it's amazing when you have nothing to do in that house, when boredom strikes. I don't care if it's flash mob dances, if it's big blue couches, if it's singing songs. There's so much that people try to do, and when that's all you've got to do to listen to, eventually it gets on people's nerves at different times. All right, so when you have that, I was kind of laughing about that. There's talk amongst the ladies about cats and dentists, hints above. Now, let me clarify. We're not actually talking about cats who are dentists. There was talk about cats, and SarahBeth told this long story about how she has a thing against cats now sometimes because she found a cat chewing on her toothbrush or something. And so from that, it turned into a conversation about dentists and getting fillings, and SarahBeth saying anesthesia doesn't work on her, so she hates going. It was just one of those kind of nights. Y'all feel me on that? So yeah, conversations about cats and dentists, not necessarily combined, but I thought it was a cool little picture. So we've got that. There's also, they then turn to conversation, talk about past house guests, favorite competitions, riddles. They tell a lot of riddles and jokes. Kyland comes in, he starts participating as well. I gotta say that they got to work on their punchline just a little bit on a lot of these jokes. It was a little rough watching, but hey, they're trying. They're trying to have fun in there. All right, later and finally, we've got Hannah talking to Azah while Azah is actually in the shower, but Hannah's pitching to her, telling her basically the same thing she'd said earlier to Kyland, that really she'd like to keep Claire over Alyssa if it comes right down to it. So we hear Hannah starting to make some pitches and kind of showing where her loyalties may be as we start getting rid of the non-Cookout Alliance members. And it just makes me that much more excited to wonder how all these different moving parts are going to come up against each other. And we're getting ready to see some real battles. It's in a lot of ways, it's been easy so far. And nothing's easy in the Big Brother house, but it seems like it's been easy for the last 4 or 5 weeks to get people out because the Cookout Alliance very much had an objective. Once those people are gone, it's going to be cats and it's going to be dogs. We're going to see a lot of fighting taking place, which as viewers is what we're here for, right? So yeah, Hannah's starting to create a little bit of a position, and we'll see how that plays out over the next week or two. And with that, Houseguest in bed by 4 o'clock or so in the morning. They're calling it an early night. I don't think we'll see a whole massive amount of campaigning taking place over the next few days. We're going to see people doing just like Hannah's doing. We're going to start seeing people really positioning, I think, over the next few days in preparation for the next HOH, which is going to be a vital, very critical HOH. This HOH has got to be the most important of the season for a whole lot of people. So I'm excited about that. And I have a feeling we'll be talking a lot about strategy planning, things like that when we get back tomorrow morning. Guys, y'all have a fantastic Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday, right? Yeah, y'all have a fantastic Tuesday. I'll be back tomorrow morning. We'll talk a little bit more Big Brother and what happened overnight. Have a great one, guys. SKD 143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.